to the Global Influence. Today, I get to rock out with the amazing Elena Orvanchuk. She's the founder of Grow, Embody, Thrive, a private community with over 430 women. Elena is an emotional wealth coach who helps women move from survival into thriving. They reconnect with themselves and make their thriving baseline. Her work creates a safe space for women to be seen, valued for their growth, and embrace their inner wisdom and live life with more presence and self-trust. Elena, welcome. Welcome to the space.
Thank you so much for having me and thank you for the introduction. It's my absolute pleasure for being here and connect again.
Yes, no, it's so epic. We've been on a journey now, and to be here today really means a lot to me. And so, to start us off, to really get the ball rolling, for people meeting you for the first time, who's Elena today?
Who am I today? I am an emotional wealth coach, and the reason I chose those words is because I look at emotions as not something that we need to struggle with or something that's overpowering us. I look at them as a fuel. So I guess as a background, I could say that I am supporting women to learn how to turn emotions from something that maybe drains them or feels too hard into the fuel towards creating the life on their terms. And working with emotions is what helps us to thrive at baseline right now. So not one day in the future, also not one day in the past that it had happened and might never happen again, but whatever happens for me right now, how can I support myself to look at it as a fuel and
Mm,
something I can work with?
mm,
So I take this very practical approach because I work with some of the key concepts of honesty and kindness, which often become just words. And for me, it's not just a word. How can I make it practical? How can I support a woman on returning to thriving, not just as a wish, not just something that she thinks about, but into something that she can do. And I'm using the gesture so you know that the journey from the head towards the hands goes through her heart, and that's how I look at it. It's for me to create that link for a woman to connect to that state of thriving as well as how to get there that works for her on a embodied on an embodied level.
I love
Because
that.
I always believe that once you have that connection, nobody can take it away from you. You know, once you have that sense of, well, this is me, this is my life, this is my happiness, it almost becomes like, you know, the hook that you can always pull yourself back in. And a lot of us these days are forgetting forgetting what it's like to be thriving, forgetting what it's like to have that sense of self-trust. What does it mean outside of a concept?
Yes.
That's I guess in a nutshell what I do is to create a
Amazing.
practical connection for women that they can return to again and again and again. I call it like emotional muscle memory. Just keep
Wow.
going, returning, you know, working your emotions as muscles. Because let's be honest. If we look at, and I look at physical body a lot in my work as an example, as a blueprint. If you want to get fitter or healthier, if you do something once, if you do something twice, you know, your muscles are not necessarily gonna look at it as a memory. But the reason you can lift something is because your bicep knows what to do. We need to do exactly the same thing with our
We don't
emotions.
have that practice enough of
Yeah, if we do not
emotion.
have that practice, yes. And for me, it's all about we can't do anything towards another person unless I practice it on myself. I can't really be genuinely and most importantly, sustainably kind to another person if I don't
Mm.
know how to apply it towards myself. So, but how do we do that?
That's so
That's very
powerful.
difficult.
That's so
It's something
powerful.
that we think we should know, but we don't. We're not born
Yeah.
with that sense of what is self-kindness, what is self-trust, and yes, so
We think
that's how I look
emotions come and
at it.
go, hey? We really can be in that state. Well, so I certainly thought
We
before,
can think that,
consciously.
yeah, we can definitely think that
They
but
happen
that's
on
the
a
beauty
cause and
of it too.
effects basis, right? If something happens,
Yeah,
and I'm going to have
exactly.
a
Yeah,
feeling about that, but not enough of us are consciously tapping into creating the emotional experiences we
yeah,
want to deeply connect with, right? I love the
yes,
analogy there of connecting it with with developing a muscle. And
Yeah.
through my own experience of like diving into Dr. Joe Dispenza, exploring consciously, creating through emotion as well,
Hmm.
that
Hmm.
journey is so exciting and so wonderful. My partner and I were talking about it last night. She's just opening up the doors to this space, and she's like, "I can like harness this stuff," and it's like, "Yes,
Yeah. Yeah.
you can."
Exactly. Exactly. And creating that excitement as well, because for a lot of the time, and I'll be very honest, people I work with or even just speak to, often it feels like, oh, managing my own emotions is just another thing I need to do, right? And it's about, are you adding onto my life plate, as I call it? But I look at it this way: it's all right. We have, firstly, if I look at your life plate, everything that you have to carry, I'm not necessarily gonna take things off your life plate, because my work is not about making life all of a sudden uh, easier because fewer do. If that's what you want, that's okay. But for me, it's important to look at what do we carry, and are the emotions something that adds on top, or rather, are the emotions something that helps you carry the plate? And I quite often refer to, again, my honesty and kindness. They're my two big pillars of the two main emotions that I look at. We start working with, and they're like arms. When one of them starts to get weaker, well, the load starts to feel a bit wobbly, but everything gets tiring. But when
Yeah.
your arms are stronger, you can carry things very different. And sometimes you start to maybe even add things. Now, often I have transformations of the women that I work with. It's not just about making me feel better right now. It's about how can I start experiencing my life differently. And very often the women start to find those resources and freeing them up towards actually creating more enjoyment in your life, more enjoyment in what you do. So experiencing life differently, and then possibly even adding other things in.
Mm,
It's
mm,
like recovering. So, for example, recovering from a relationship and then making space for the new one. Because when you are in a really downward kind of energy state, it's very hard to even think about opening up yourself towards something new. But if you learn how to work with what's here right now, start to experience your life differently, then anything is a possibility. Then it becomes more of a natural step forward.
yeah.
So that's why I
Well
think
said.
it's for me it's important to get women to understand that this is not something that's going to make their work life harder. It's just something that's going to put them back into that main character stage, that the life is happening because I'm making these choices every day. It's
Yeah.
not because one day I'm going to be this independent, this confident, this thriving woman. It's because right here, right now, I can start making small choices that's going to make me help to feel this way. And therefore, if I'm feeling it right now, I am that person.
Mm,
Maybe I'm not going
yeah.
to feel it 100% of the time, but slowly, and this is again like the muscle returning back about, okay,
Mm.
flex the thriving muscle,
Yeah.
returning
Anchor this
again.
state. Anchor this state.
Anchor the
Anchor this
state,
state.
yes. Return,
And
return, repeat, repeat, repeat. Yes, and
it's
it's that. But
so
isn't
powerful.
that a good thing to practice though? The thriving as a practice, and choosing
Yeah.
versus
It's amazing.
returning to the state, yeah, that we are not controlling at all.
Yeah. What really stood out for me there, Elena, is when people see their emotions as another responsibility, like we can be very much operating from like a over energy space. There might be just so
Mm,
much going on. And emotionally, we haven't been tapping into this, right? And
mm,
so the energy behind that can be really heavy. And so
yes.
I love what you put there about it's not about taking responsibility away and just like going and sitting on a beach and being like,
Mm,
this is all I need. It's more so about tapping into these emotions to help us come from such a greater source of energy.
mm,
And I love
mm,
that. I really love that because I think not enough people talk about that. That
mm,
like it's not about, yeah, reducing your responsibility in your world. It's about setting yourself up emotionally to handle that on such a different level. And then when we
mm,
come from that space, I love that it's also talking about adding even more. It's like, hey, how can we take even more responsibility right now? How can we lean in even more from this space of kindness, from this
mm,
space of gratitude, the space of
Yeah.
trust, even. That's so,
Yeah,
so powerful.
100%. And responsibilities, it depends on how we look at them. Responsibilities can be something that's been put onto us or something that we choose that is working. How is it working for me right now? The things that I do them for a reason. And if I'm not choosing them, then I can change them. But if I'm not changing them, I need to be okay in choosing them because we all have different circumstances. And one of the big things that I work with is also emotional capacity because it all comes down to what we can't do and I always look at it as an ultimate kind of honesty test. Can I do it or can I not do it? Or sometimes we get a bit creative with it because sometimes some women I work with they say, "Oh, I never say I can't do something," but then they just don't do it.
Yeah,
Avoidance has that also a bit of a mask over it. And but it does come down to the fact what can I do in terms of
I
my
love that.
capacity and
That's really
also
big.
what is that I also call that in a yes. We always talk about have your why, but what about your yes? Because you can be doing something, but then there is this battle inside you that I really don't want to do it. Well, if you still have to do it, what about just softening that in the battle? Because
Mm,
that's just energy going to waste.
yeah,
And I'm not saying that I'll condone things. But again, if we are not okay with what's going on, how can I, instead of being feeling angry about it or upset about it, how can I use that energy as a resource to change things?
yeah,
And if right now this is not possible, it's like why would I can struggle if I know that say the current is taking me, if I don't have enough strength to fight it, I would float.
mm,
There was once I've asked this question. I posted a picture of myself in a pool of how you call them, those plastic kind of light balls. When you're trying to get out of them. And
yeah,
I said fight or float, and it was very interesting because a lot of people responded saying with fight. What is the energetic? What is the reason to, if you know that right now is does not it's not going to change things. I'm not saying let's just step away from a responsibility. I'm talking about energetically. Is
mm,
this resourceful or not resourceful?
mm,
Because if it's not resourceful to fight against the current, can I save the energy even for my thinking about what's my next step?
mm.
Because quite often we're fighting with circumstances rather than using that energy towards to feel, give ourselves rest.
Yeah,
Because yeah, that constant fight inside, those conversations that we're replaying sometimes in our heads from the past or the future, are they being resourceful? Is that helpful? Or can this be tapped in and actually help to decide what's next? So
yeah,
that's
yeah,
something
it's a
that,
big deal. It's
yeah.
a really big deal, Elena, because I what I notice for a lot of people, like you brought up something there about not like people constantly being in a state where they're like, oh, I never say I can't do something. And then I've noticed a very empowering thing because a lot of people like to promote that thinking, like, hey, we can do anything. Hell yeah, woo. And that's cool. That's cool. I can
Mhm.
understand the empowering part of that. It's really powerful to discern
Mhm.
what we can't
Absolutely.
do, or if not can't do, it's like what we don't want to do
Yeah.
and own
Yeah.
that and that honesty that we can tap into and just be like, that's not me. That's been one of the most empowering thing I've noticed in people doing the work where they start to just own there's parts of life that they're not like ringing the bell for. And that's the uniqueness of human beings, which is so
Yeah.
beautiful to own and accept. And I think when we start behaving from that space as well, the energy that we have for the things we truly love, that we love connecting with,
Hmm.
it's so expansive, and we need to go to that level of honesty with ourselves. And so
Yeah.
I've got I got a question for you. So
Yes.
I was reading one of your posts the other day, and like I'm gonna put your post in the description of
Mm.
these videos because your posts are wonderful and the depth that you put into them is awesome.
Thank
And
you.
I had a question, so I just wanted to ask.
Yes.
When looking back at the little girl that was growing up in Russia, spending time in hospitals,
Mm.
learning to be so independent at such a young age, I want to know, like, what do you now understand about her?
What I understood in particular from, well, to be honest, for a long time I was not quite connected to this little girl, at least on this level, and this is one of the reasons the work I call is emotional wealth, because it was an incredible gift for myself to be able to reconnect to her fully as I am now,
Mm,
and to be able to reflect on those experiences completely, freely, and if with tears, but with tears of gratitude for me so much and for retaining so much. And what I mean by that is that we often pack those memories away, and they are like in these boxes frozen in time. And this is what those memories for a long time had been for myself, that I maybe on some factual level I remembered it, but not so much emotionally. And being able to see myself fully and honestly in what had happened had been a really big gift. That's why for me, honesty is really important. But I do believe that honesty is something that we are born with. It's
mm,
our awareness. It's our, inner critics. It's always there. Kindness is needed to come in to make honesty workable. What you had previously mentioned about like other people accepting the circumstances, it's not possible to do that without enough kindness with it. And this is in some ways what I support other women with, is because this is what I had been doing towards myself, to be able to fully see back and see that I had went through experiences and carried away the survivalist that I had been for a while.
mm,
Because for a long time I didn't know what was, I was just this super independent girl, and I never wanted to be dependent, and I was extremely vigilant, but I had built like a little, not a little, I built the whole ecosystem around it, because for a long time I didn't even realize I was the survivalist, because I really wanted to reach out. I thought, well, I'm okay, but I need to reach out. I need to reach out towards other people, so other people cannot see that I am actually not feeling safe. So I'm creating my own new safety space, and my own new safety space. What's the safest thing to do is reach out. But then each time reaching out, thinking, oh, but people don't really, because if you reach out, a lot of people think she's okay, she's okay, she's okay, she's so independent, she's okay. And I am grateful to this little girl for developing that, because she just created this, she created a pretty good environment,
yeah.
to go on with life, to, yes, still, having my sort of multiple layers of protection around, but knowing that what she wants to do is to help other people, to support other people, to speak different languages, and just being able to understand. But one of the reasons that she wanted to understand other people, but also it was the protective mechanism,
Mm,
because my ability to read the room is also partially because I was super vigilant. I was very
mm,
vigilant. But I'm so proud of her that, if you mentioned in my post that, even feeling unsafe, even feeling like nobody's listening, and because hospitals at the time, when you are by yourself without parents, right? You go into and it was the reality at the time. I still somehow was able to verbalize that I wasn't feeling safe in certain situations, and I made it. I made people to step in and support me. Some
mm,
of the things I hadn't even shared afterwards with my family. We actually had a big conversation with my mom the other day about it, and she said, oh, I didn't know these things. And I said, to be honest, mom, I didn't even remember those things,
mm.
because I wasn't ready to face those things. I wasn't ready to face
Didn't have
that level
space
of,
for it.
yeah, I didn't have space for it. I had to
Mm,
grow that space for myself over the years. And this is, but this is the gift. The
mm,
gift is that as I had been growing space for myself, not necessarily towards this destination, I want to connect to my childhood memories. I didn't even think about it at the time. I just felt, because as you grow your kindness, your honesty levels also start to rise, and you start to be able to see. Because in order for you, like I sometimes say that acceptance comes in two ingredients, right? Kindness and honesty. Honesty is always there, but if there is not enough kindness, it's too painful. We can't look,
yeah.
and we either block it,
Mm,
or sometimes we just avoid it. And we have all sorts of mechanisms, right? We can blame, we can shame, we can numb, we can all sorts of things. We have them, and they're there. Like I often joke that I have my little grumpy chair and I have my victim chair, and
That's
it's there.
important.
I can go and sit there, but because I know that it's not the way. Because once
That's
you
really
once you
important. Like,
yeah, there, and the thing is also something that has come up. Why kindness is so important, and it leads towards acceptance. Because once I can accept everything about me, what does it matter? What does it matter? What can someone else hold against me? Nobody can hold anything against you if you are completely okay with yourself. And this is the best gift.
that's very, very
If I
powerful.
can look back at every memories in my life and think, that's all right, maybe I wasn't and this is the biggest gift. Because and the reason I look around, because sometimes I do feel like that. It's like all these versions of myself in the past, and some
Well,
of them are still present,
one
but
of the
I'm
biggest things
welcoming
we're all
them.
fighting is shame. And
Yes,
there's
and
such a
if you
massive
know how,
experience of shame that we can be avoiding. And we were talking about it a bit before the call, like when we first started off making videos, putting ourselves out there, hearing ourselves was
mm,
so difficult. And there's just layers of a lot of stuff. I think as we tap into our emotions, we tap into expanding the space we have for ourselves, our capacity to, yeah, handle the good, the beauty
mm,
is wonderful. And it's also the other side to handle all the shadow parts of us too,
yes,
and not
yeah,
have to reject it, hide it, do something
yeah,
about it. It's just like this is this is what's happening, and
yeah,
I can take that in, and it's all good. But if we're grumpy and we're like, oh, I don't want to be grumpy, like, "Rah, stop being grumpy," we just get caught in it. And it's miraculous to, like, I caught myself the other day when I was feeling grumpy. And I was just like, oh, I'm feeling grumpy right now. I do this thing with Hannah all the time. I'm like, oh, I'm feeling grumpy. It's like acknowledging it from a space
yeah,
of, hey, this is where I'm at right now. And this is okay. It doesn't need to be changed. It's just this is where I'm at. And it's
yeah,
beautiful to come from that because I remember the days when grumpiness was heavy and hectic and it wasn't cool. And now it's, yeah, I can bring some fun to it, even when I'm
yeah.
really feeling it too.
Yeah, thank you so much for sharing that. And it's like the level. I know it's hard for us sometimes to visualize it as on our own level. So sometimes I explain to my clients, like, think about the different person that you interact with, or even sometimes looking in the mirror might help. But essentially, if you're grumpy and you speak to another person and they just accept you, they would be like, yeah, it's okay. You feel instantly better because your grumpiness, that load, has been halved. It has been shared.
Mm,
And what I guess in some ways I'm trying to teach my clients is that how to do that with yourself. How can you harden the load all the time by yourself? Because the moment you are able to acknowledge, okay, this is, yeah, well, I am right now. If someone says to you, yeah, it's okay. Well, it's okay. You can't stop. You can't just continue being grumpy. It's not going to happen. Well, at least it's still going to decrease because somebody acknowledged you, somebody witnessed you. And I can't remember whose quote is it. I think it was maybe Gabor Mate, but I remember
mm,
listening to a podcast, and I remember someone saying that the trauma is essentially a deep emotional experience. It was a Esther Perel who quoted it, but deep emotional experience that hasn't been witnessed with
mm.
kindness and compassion.
Well, yeah.
And this is
Well,
quite often I call that this is the gap, right? So say if I look at my childhood memories, the gap is that at the time, people who were there with me for different reasons were not able to witness me, and I wasn't able to witness me. So what happened?
mm.
It became a scar. But right now, I am
And then
able to
it
witness it.
shows up in a bit of resistance, right? Like when,
Yeah,
like
and
I'm
protection
relating to,
because you.
oh,
Oh,
hello.
I have fireworks. What did
Oh, yeah,
that?
baby. Because
I don't, my Zoom does some interesting things, but normally it
I
raises
know.
a hand if I do a lot of
If I did
fireworks.
this, I think maybe a little auto
Maybe I don't
interact. Like, I
know.
see you. But that
But
is so that's a very powerful point, Elena. Like when we're resisting our experience, it's so clunky, right? I'm imagining like a river and like this river's flowing in a certain direction, and it's like when we're not okay with how we feel, we're trying to stop the river, but it's still
yeah,
flowing. It's still
yeah,
going past us,
yeah,
but we're like, come on, we're trying to barricade it, but it's just happening, and
yes,
we're spending so much energy
yeah.
resisting it when
And,
if
and
we're
yeah, and then we are
here
upset. And then we get
allowing
upset
it,
that,
yeah,
you
it's
know,
such a
I'm
different
trying
story.
not to resist it. And then why can't I not just, why is not that, we call, I
Why
think
am I
we can call
grumpy?
it the
I'm
secondary.
grumpy with the grumpy.
I shouldn't be grumpy anymore. Why can't, yeah, exactly. I shouldn't be, or somebody feels like, say, I don't know, we feel jealous. I shouldn't be feeling jealous. Why can't I feel, it becomes this circle. And I always say that whatever it is, whatever you think or feel, it's okay.
Hmm. And taking along
Just
with it.
blank statement, it's okay.
Yeah.
Actions might cause, like, and my first principle of operation that whenever I start working with the clients, it's safety.
Hmm.
Of course, for me, it's safety, and look, it's universal, and but it's essentially our words, our feelings. They don't hurt anyone. Well, ourselves sometimes if we are not. But
Hmm.
because saying something out, yeah, that's different. But if you thought it or you felt it, everything is okay because that secondary wave comes in when the shame comes. Oh, I shouldn't be doing it. It's okay.
Hmm.
Just having the load straight away
Hmm.
because that's how we start to see things clearly, because trying to fight against something, it just doesn't work. It's about that.
Hmm.
But sometimes when you say things like softening, relaxing, it feels it's not enough action. It's not enough action. I should be doing
Well,
something, right?
you brought up a
Yeah.
very powerful point there, Elena, because something you said earlier really struck a chord with me with being kind and being honest is really powerful because I think there's some kindness warriors out there, or in another way, you could call them people pleasers as well, where they never actually tap into honesty. And so they're just kind,
Yeah.
kind, kind, kind. But when we don't have that honesty, sometimes kindness and honesty can look like, hey, you need to be doing a better job here. I want more
Oh,
from you.
you need
And
both. You
that's
need both.
such an
Yes.
important message because if we're just caught in kindness, yeah, we can go down that lane of people pleasing. And ultimately, we know that isn't serving. And
Yeah,
so,
but then if it's not serving, it's not kindness.
yeah,
So
exactly
I can't.
right.
So I think on the outside it might look like it's kindness, but
It looks like a
deserve
pretty
is not kindness.
box, but it's got
Yeah, well,
shackles
you
in
just
there.
stepped on something. You just call in the past, and I'm very open about it. I had become a very big people pleaser from all that surviving, but
Mm,
I was very genuine in I was always genuine in reaching out towards people. I didn't even realize that a lot of things that I had been doing were because I needed to keep myself safe by being liked.
yeah.
That was a program running behind me. I didn't know anything. I was doing it from the kindness of the heart and just sometimes feeling sadness. Oh, I wish I would be received. Because of course the gap was growing, right? But what was I doing? What do survivors do? I was changing environments.
Mm,
And I'm not saying that's why I've been moving countries and everything, partially, maybe, I don't know. But then at some point, and I'm for the situations in life where I had to face it because there are certain things you just cannot, you just
yeah,
have to start,
so
or you
right.
keep going into burnout cycles because, once you add on some extra responsibilities, marriage, children, etc., mortgage, you know that you can't just shift away from things. You have to face what you're doing. Like I needed to face why was I feeling my own plate so much? Why was I loading my plate so much? Why was it so heavy? And you are very right. So I personally think that people pleasing is not kindness. Like that's it, we really want to be working together with the two. They
Yeah.
are like the two arms, or sometimes I call it like riding a bicycle. You know, I'm supporting you to learn to ride the bicycle of that thriving, which requires two pedals. You can't just go on one. If you are just being kind, but you're not being honest, you're gonna fall off. If you are
Yeah.
being honest, but you're not kind,
You're
you're
resisting,
gonna
you're
fall off.
resisting the
Yeah,
truth. You
we
are.
need
And
to. Yeah, yeah,
you're trying to create this rose-colored world that truly doesn't exist. And I was having a
yeah.
conversation last night where I've been in personal development. I've learned so much about positive psychology and how it's so powerful to see the world a little bit better than it is. And in that, we've also got to see the world as it is sometimes. And so it's embracing all that is and having capacity
Yes.
for that. And I want to, I'd like, got to ask you this next question because you brought
Yes.
up the
Okay.
points there that were awesome. So I want to ask this. I think it's super important. What did survival mode look like before you realized you were living in it?
Well, before it was life. I didn't
Mm,
even call it that. And what I think I've survival mode was running away from being discovered in some ways, right? It was maintaining, in some ways, it was maintaining that, that reality that I had created and surviving mode because you spend so much time protecting. That's why I also sometimes look at it as in your emotional. So imagine that you are running away from your own emotions because that's what's happened. You have your experience in the past you can't look at, and then there is something happening right now maybe that might remind you about it. And often this is all on unconscious level, but it's a box after box after box are put away.
mm,
And what do? We need to store them somewhere. So I always say, like, you have your emotions stored in a box, you don't have access to that energy, and you're also paying for storage to all the protective parts of you are stored. So this is so what's gonna happen? That's exhausting.
mm.
You are running out of your
Overextended.
emotional capital because you keep paying for storage and you keep putting them all. So it was draining. It was feeling like I am spinning the wheels, but I do not see what, I remember in particular, there was this part of like years and years of my life where I would say, okay, it's gonna get better because I don't know, let's say I'm gonna get married. It's gonna get better because I'm gonna have kids. It's gonna get better when kids are old. And then each year would tuck in, I was like, what's going on?
Wishing,
Because life
waiting,
is
and
getting
hoping.
harder and harder, and I'm not feeling any better. And numbness was one of the big things for me because I remember being so run down, and
Mm,
I was very good at what I was doing work wise, and being there for my kids in terms of juggling. And I did have flexible arrangements with my work, but that meant I was working crazy hours because I was catching up because the people pleaser of me, I was trying to prove that it's okay to give me flexibility. I'm just gonna run, and I kept taking more and more work. But I remember
mm,
sitting with kids, trying to read a book with them, and I would read it, but my mind is elsewhere, and I'm not enjoying little things, right? Or being in a concert. I remember going to Bon Jovi's concert, and I'm just sitting there. People are dancing, and I just felt nothing inside. And it was scary. It was scary. So there were always little bits and pieces that started to show me that
You weren't safe to play.
something's not right.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Because what am I creating? What is it actually? And this is what I'm also trying to, I guess, say to anyone that I speak with and I work with is that survival is a skill set. It's when I often use that analogy of the life savior, but it's about skills. It doesn't mean that now for the rest of the time on the beach, the life savior is gonna sit there or they're vigilant, but they're relaxed. If you see them on the beach, they relaxed. When they need to, they jump in.
Mm,
And I use this analogy also with a client the other day, which I can apply even to myself, I guess, when I was younger. Is imagine that you are just learning to become a life savior, and one of the first days on the job it's a really big storm, and you really have to go in the thick and really deal with these situations. So you learn very fast, very quick. You are very experienced now, and then you return to shore, and it's peaceful.
mm,
This is where we need to discern that your skills do not have to become your mode. You
mm,
can switch on when you need to, but your point of life is to enjoy the life. It's not about being in that fight or flight, super vigilant state.
And when
And
you
this is
start
something
there,
that I had.
it's such an important message to hear that because when survival is your consistent, most constant reality, to hear you can take a step back.
Yeah,
and come from such a greater space. Like I've had clients be like be so resistant of that, but then everything's gonna go to even more crazy, and it's like, how do you know that? And
yeah,
they can
yeah,
play it out more, and it's like just give yourself 10 minutes to
yeah,
take the
and start
armor off,
small.
put down
I
the
think,
sword, and allow
yeah,
yourself to be present to how you truly are, and not have to have it all together. It's so powerful for people to do that. But for some, it's such a challenge. It's like,
it's
I can't take my hands off the wheel. No. And it's so
yes,
beautiful
and
once
I
they
can
get it
absolutely resonate with that.
and they click and their
Yeah,
shoulders come down.
yeah,
They just take that breath of fresh air that's so deep. That's a wonderful sigh. It's wonderful to witness that in another being. And so I got to ask you another question because it's
sure.
important.
Thank you for your questions.
So you've been on a massive journey. You've rebuilt your life through so many chapters. You've experienced moving countries, heartbreak, divorce, motherhood, career, burnout. What chapter has shaped you the most?
I think all of them,
Mhm.
all of them in a lot of ways have shaped me. Because you know how the people ask question, would you change anything in your life? No, I wouldn't change anything in my life. Um, I guess one of the biggest ones that I can resonate with right now, having this conversation, is rebuilding my life in Australia because I came into Australia with my first husband. We had been married since like we were sweethearts in uni, and sometimes I refer to this as the house out of cards. When I was arriving into Australia, I had all these wasn't meant to stay here, but arriving into Australia, we had all these things mapped out, and none of them went according to plan.
I
It
see.
was and I had to also make a decision because the relationship wasn't working, and I had to take that step. I had to take a step, but I know now that I wasn't running away. I was running towards myself because, again, as that little girl in the hospital, I knew that this is not working. I don't know what's gonna happen, and I sometimes share that story that when I was moving out of the place where I live with my ex-husband, a friend of mine, she found a room I could rent with it was a shared accommodation. There was some backpackers, and she told because I didn't even know too many people at the time in Australia. And it's not a joke, but when I was moving in there, there was a no kind of a sign on the door in that room that said Hobbit Hole. So
Hobbit,
literally,
Hobbit hole.
yeah, Hobbit Hole, because the lady who was renting it out, it used to be, her son moved out of the house and she was renting rooms towards backpackers and students. And he, I guess, obviously was into the hobbits when he was young. Yeah, so that was me, like with my
You moved
suitcase.
into the
I have
Hobbit
no idea
zone.
where I am, where there was some part of Sydney that I didn't know really into Hobbit Hole. And when I look back
I want to
and
validate that. That's a big shift. For
I
you
chuckled at
had
the time.
you had
Yeah,
this setup and this the house of cards, as you said, crumbled,
yeah,
and then
it
you
was
moving in
everything.
that
It was the
direction.
work, the
It,
housing, like the family, like
it's
we
a
had
lot.
our plans. Yeah, everything. And when I sometimes look at things, I think, oh my God, like, how on earth did she know? Like me, how did she know it's gonna work out? And this is what has been supporting me in my journey in building, for example, business, like step out of one career into the other, into when you're 40 and it's maybe a few years back, I wouldn't have even thought that I would be able to do that. But I'm thinking, if this young woman with her suitcase came into the Hobbit Hole and knew that it was hard like,
Mhm.
emotionally, and and I think how can I not trust myself to do what I'm doing if I am feeling like the pull, even things like recording videos, right? Like how can I not do that? Like when I look back at those memories, I just had to, she knew it. She
Mm.
kept going. She didn't know. And this is something what I guess I want to share with
Ultimate
everyone.
fear, hey.
We don't need to know, but if you are kind to yourself, if you're honest with yourself, it's gonna be okay. It's gonna be okay. Just take that step because deep down, that's why that question, can I or can I not? We know the answer if we allow ourselves to be honest with ourselves and we hold that kindness. We all
Yeah,
know the answer deep down. Because if
yeah.
I can't right now. Why? What stops me? Where can I work on is it my capacity? Like I have a bit of a concept around, is it my capacity? Is my inner yes? So
It's
I'm
so
honoring her and
powerful.
I'm very grateful
So powerful, like,
towards them.
because it's like what came up for me there is the two states of mind where we're the victim or the victor. And like this isn't to judge people that are in the victim, because I was there,
Oh,
been it,
absolutely not.
and
Absolutely not. Yeah.
like when we are in that state, it's we're not recognizing that we overcame that. We got through it. And
Yeah.
that is something that is powerful. And when we can truly step into that, really that strength from the things we've overcome, from the toughest moments, it is so wonderful to see that change. Because I remember what it's been like for me and for so many people that have been impacted by stuff like we have been, by being young, being in hospital, like how that changed our life. I remember when it was like, ah, fuck, like this isn't good. And it was such a negative experience, which I can have compassion for. I
Yeah.
understand where I was at. Now, being in the state of being like, wow, look what I overcame. Holy shit, what brought me to today is huge. The fact that I'm here, like, I'm just clapping on past me.
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow. And that energy shift is so massive. And for the people that are still in that state of heaviness about the past,
Mm.
well, I think I urge you, as you're listening to this right now, what's something you can commend yourself for? What's something you can acknowledge
Yeah.
yourself for overcoming? Because it's
100%.
huge.
100%.
That's massive.
Self-acknowledgement.
Mm,
Self-acknowledgement is such a powerful tool, and I've recorded videos and done posts about it. But I'll just maybe for someone who hasn't heard, I'll just give you that analogy. We all have played video games at some point, and I look at self-acknowledgement as if you're a Mario, in a video game, normally you can either go and just go from point A towards point B, and yes, maybe you complete your mission. I'm not really playing much, but I do remember those extra coins hanging. If you jump up high enough or if you go sideways, you pick them. This is what self-acknowledgement does.
mm,
Because each time you say, "Oh, I did this. I
mm,
did this. I did this," it goes. I go with the thriving bank. It just goes chun chun chun. It because I've done something, and this is why I have this tool that I often offer to, and it's available for free. I can send it if anyone is interested. Called self care fuel tracker. Why it's tracker? Because self care is one of the smaller parts that you can start building your kindness, and then and it's trackable. So you're being honest with yourself in some ways, but you're acknowledging yourself. So you're doing something good for you, and then you're acknowledging yourself.
mm,
And this is such a big, powerful thing to do. So if somebody is listening right now, yes, as you said, just take a piece of paper, write down one good thing you did today. This is something that I still have my reminder on my phone every single day, and it's coming from a few years ago when I really needed to pick myself up, and as I was rebuilding, truly rebuilding from all of my burnouts and people pleasing stages. And it's asking me this question: what have I done well today? But it's asking in a way of it's in Russian, but the focus is what have I done? What can I acknowledge myself for?
mm,
And start from there,
mm,
because this is you being you. You're talking about the victim and the victor state. We can be in the same circumstances, and the fact that I cannot change my circumstances. Even when I moved out of my, I separated, was I feeling happy straight away? No, it was hard. We are going through thickness and any situation, but you can support yourself with just one act of kindness right here, right now.
Yeah.
And if you can't, well, I am sharing that message towards everybody who is listening. I know you would also support me, Harry.
Yeah, it's
Just
important
sending that
to.
unconditional kindness. I see you. I acknowledge you. You are listening. Whatever you have done good for yourself, just get that extra credit from me.
We have that
But
negative bias in our brain that wants to
yes,
find the
we do.
negative.
We do.
Yeah.
But if we
We've got
know
to
that,
go, we've got to shift the direction some.
yeah, and we start small. Yes, I
Yeah.
am very negative. Sometimes I hear that I've had some clients saying to me, Elena, I'm so negative on myself. And I say, the reason you're calling yourself negative is already showing that you have a lot of awareness, because truly negative people, they don't see themselves like that because they cannot see either or. And anyway, in my
They
world,
just be
negative is not a
pouring it
bad word.
out. I really get that. And it's important for
Yeah.
people to know, hey,
And this is
did you
acknowledgement saying
notice?
you
Did you
see
notice?
yourself.
You just demonstrated
Yes.
self-awareness. And
Yes.
that is so powerful because, yeah, we can be the first person to see ourselves, like to point at ourselves when we fall over. And not enough of us champion ourselves or acknowledge ourselves. And so just trying that on, it's really, really powerful for people.
Yeah,
It's
and
really
it's
important.
available. I always often I can be I love inner critics. I
Mm,
love them
mm,
because they are the truth speakers. They just don't know how to have the good manners, right? Like we need to teach them some kindness. Because what changes? The only difference between a cheerleader or supporter and a critic is just the way they say things.
yeah,
Because if the critic is saying something and it annoys us, well, maybe there is something that is true. But if we can start working with kindness and saying, okay, all right, well, right now it's like this, it doesn't have to be this way, and I can do something about it. And
that's
if I
powerful.
have only one coin of my thriving energy in me, well, guess where I'm going to put it? I want to put it towards creating change.
Yeah, wow. That's so powerful because, like, it's so important for people to hear that message. I remember early on in my journey that when I first even was taught the concept of inner critic, I started to become so much more aware of how I was interfacing with this part of me. And
Mm,
I noticed that I had been connecting with that part. When I didn't really like what it had to say, what my mind had to say, the inner critic had to say, I would reject it. I would push it down. And even just starting to take on the message of being able to be thankful for that part,
mm.
even if I don't
Yeah,
love what it,
yeah,
love the thought, being thankful for it to be there, that it is here presenting something to me. It's like I started to really establish a relationship with it that was like, I don't know, before it would say something and then maybe I'd go to war with it, and then all these parts would just start going on. And then now it was just like holding space for this part and just being like, thanks for being here. And there wasn't this turmoil that happened. It was just more peacefulness I got to embrace.
yeah,
And so
yeah,
it's so important for those people that maybe can be going to war with their inner critic to embrace that gratitude.
yeah. Yeah, or
Yeah.
just be civil. We've all been in situations where we may have an older relative, or maybe working with somebody in the company, some grumpy person that they mean well, but they just are very straight to the point, and maybe
Direct.
the delivery is not. But how much more forgiving are we towards another person than ourselves? Like we are the toughest people. We are the toughest. I always say that. Well, who is actually judging?
Mm.
Oh, these people might be judging. I said, well, who else is judging? And sometimes if they don't want to say it, if I'm in a Zoom session, I would say, this person is in the room. And then you're like, okay, yeah, they said it's not me. But this is it. And
I'm not
once we understand,
judgmental. No, no, no. And it's so powerful to people to
now everybody
own
says
that,
that
hey?
I am,
It's
yeah,
constantly happening. The judgment of this person's a lovely person. That's a judgment. It's a positive judgment, but it's a judgment. And it's so important to be conscious of that because there's been such a, I reckon there's been such a negative thing spread about judgment. And it's like, I think it's really
yeah.
important.
Well, because if you look at the judge in a in a court is
Mm.
about justice, as you said. It's all about, are we being scared that we're going to be judged against? So
Yeah.
once again, it comes back to us.
Mm.
If I do not have anything, like if I go, return to, if I am okay with any versions of myself, any memories of myself that resurface, I know that I can hold space for myself.
Mm.
I'll be okay. As I often say to my clients, that the other person's opinion, and it doesn't take away from the person's importance, but
Mm.
the other person's opinion really doesn't matter.
Mm. Mm.
Because you've had so many situations where somebody who is not important to you, or they would say something, and maybe they're important, but it's not true. You would say it's not true. That's it. Or somebody would say something nice to you, a compliment, but you are not quite connected to it, not quite believing it yet, right? So, so really, it's about, do I believe into what the other person is saying, and then it's about, okay, do I believe it and it annoys me, or do I believe? So once again, if it annoys me, then maybe there is a part of me that believes it's true,
Yeah.
and then I can work with it.
There's
Because
something deeper there.
if it's my own judgment, I can work with it. That's why
Mm.
I look at it with excitement, because for me, it's anything that critics are amazing, because they come up with all these, they actually come up with pointers of where to
Mm.
look at for our next emotional wealth stop in some ways.
Yeah.
Because if this is showing up for you, this is something that's ready to be looked at.
It's
That's how I look at it.
tapping into
It
experience, right? Now, something I used to say all the time around judgment was so that like there's so much fear of judgment. That's like that is a thriving
Yes,
experience. And I like to kind of be a rebel against that fear. I like to tell people like judge elegantly. Like embrace judgment elegantly. It's so powerful because when we're in this resistance of it, oh, it can come up in some very ugly ways. But when we can embrace it and elegantly judge and elegantly take on judgment, it's very powerful. It
it
completely
is very
changes our
powerful.
relationship.
Yes, 100%. And the thing is, it's something that I shared yesterday after I feel like this year Mother's Day has been, just from what I've been observing online and around me, it's been a lot of different experiences, and people were really feeling it. And that sense of, firstly, we never know what's happening in the other person's, and we need to be super kind. We need to learn to be kind to ourselves, to be genuinely say that when I meet another person. Now, most of the time, if somebody is not pleasant or not, I do think, I wonder what happened. I
Yeah.
wonder what happened for them to behave this way.
Not about
And
their
also when
words. It's not about their behavior. It's about
it's there's
how they
something that
are
something
now.
may have happened, right? Something may
Yeah.
have happened, and quite often it's like when you are working with somebody, and they're all of a sudden they're a nice person, and then every now and then they become super angry, and then you find out that they actually have an extremely angry boss, and it's cascading down.
Mm.
This is why one of the
It
things that I want
fluctuates from the head
to
down.
yeah, so for me, it's like I'm from corporate background, and I do want to bring that sense of capacity and importance of it, of how it can cascade down, how we can cascade good energy down. But that's why I think it's important. If we start to give ourselves that space of kindness, we can extend it towards another person. And yesterday I shared about it, just unconditional little bit of kindness, because we don't know 100% what happened in the other person's life. We don't know. The reason we quite often also feel like, well, why should I be accepting of them? Nobody's it comes back towards, I'm not getting it, but I need to learn how to close that gap. Because if we learn how to close that gap of accepting ourselves, accepting other person, accepting ourselves, it can only grow. It can grow in a beautiful way.
Yeah.
And if somebody doesn't
That's
accept
so
it, that's
powerful.
fine.
Well,
But
that's so powerful, Elena. Like we Hannah and I had a very cool conversation last night, and we're talking about like the quantum space and how
mm,
we literally have a field that we create from ourselves.
yeah.
And I was thinking of like past me and how the space I had for myself was so small. And that's what came up just then. It's like the
Mm,
space that we have for ourselves, the more we can enhance that. like the more space we naturally have for others. But when we're coming from that space of it's so lacking and just
Yeah,
not having a conscious connection to it, oh, it we feel
it,
like
it, it
overburdened.
it's really powerful thing to offer to ourselves. And this is, I guess, again, one of the things that I bring in my work. And I sometimes say, essentially, I create space. I create initial space,
Mm,
because in order for somebody to start to grow that kindness, they sometimes they need to borrow it, right?
mm,
And what we have been talking about, when in a session I would ask somebody, if we talk about judgments, and I would ask, well, who is actually judging? The reason the person would say back me, it's because they feel comfortable, they feel safe. That's the space that we can create for each other. And in my world, I guess I'm teaching my clients to do that for themselves, because the kindness can only produce good result. I do not believe that kindness can go wrong. Again,
yeah.
well, if
And we can
it's
be in a
just,
state
it
of
doesn't.
blame with the judgment. It's all about everyone else. But when we take responsibility for our own
Yeah, if
judgment, it's
yeah,
huge. It's so
it is
huge.
huge. It is huge, and it stops. It's almost like you pause, and then you can completely rewrite it, or at least change it a little in a little way. Make it work for you, because if I'm angry against someone else, maybe they are not saying the right thing. I cannot do anything about them. But is my state resourceful? Is me being angry? Is me draining myself? Is that
How's that
helping anyone?
going?
It's
How's that
not.
going to shift my behavior? And like with anger, particularly, I remember like I would get caught in it, and I didn't have a relationship with it. So when it would happen, it would just kind of clunky come out. But it's so wonderful getting in touch with myself to then notice, wow. I want you to know what's coming up within me. This is kind of crossing some boundaries within me. I'm noticing
Mhm.
this, I'm noticing this, I'm noticing this. And we can come from a place of intensity because anger is a place of intensity, right? But when we don't have a relationship with that anger, and it's kind of just something we might bury, oh, it can
Mhm.
come out in some very icky ways. And
Yeah,
then we can truly
yeah.
take it on and we can embrace it and understand, like, oh, if like I loved when somebody told me anger is a representation of when our boundaries are crossed. So when we can play with that and we can go, whoa, this conversation's crossing my boundaries. Let's unpack why. And it's a very powerful thing. And it doesn't need to come from a place of blame. It can come from a place of curiosity. It's like, oh, this is pissing me off.
Yeah, and boundaries is such a deep subject, because I always look at boundaries. It's like by the time somebody crosses a boundary, it's possibly there are two. I'll call it like a third level. Like if somebody repeatedly crosses, it's a third level, because the second level is, had I actually been maintaining it in the past? Because if they keep doing it, what do I need to maybe reinforce? Because a
Mm,
lot of the time the boundaries are not spoken,
yeah.
right? We assume, and then we also have our inner boundary. And often the anger is yes, maybe against the other person, but then
Mm.
also
Have I been allowing it?
how am
Yeah,
I
right.
allowing this? How am I allowing this? And this is why, yeah, that work, understanding what is the state that I want to be in right now, is a very powerful question, because I cannot change maybe the circumstances, but
Mm,
I can decide how I want to be. I want to, and I kind of look at it as in reaction versus creation, in the sense that reactive response is normally destructive. Creative response is actual response,
yeah.
because you had taken a moment, you brought your flavor in, and then you step in with that.
You got to mix something together. The reaction's just the
Reaction
autonomous.
will, yeah, tell
Just
me
happening.
what.
Yeah, just the
Yeah,
tape that
exactly.
always plays. Yeah, it's
Yeah,
really
and
powerful. Hmm.
yeah, yes, no. So it all comes. So I do look at it as an emotional wealth is something that you're getting access to your resources,
Hmm.
and you can start to see what are some of the ways that maybe you cannot change the way the situation is, but that even silly, maybe, or not a silly example, but quite often we might think, well, I'm doing this job, I don't really like this job, and I can be in that state of constant angst against it. But then I can also pause and decide, well, how is this situation working out for me? And
Hmm.
maybe quite often there are quite a lot of multiple reasons. So maybe the fact that I do not particularly enjoy the job right now, is a minor thing versus what am I actually getting. And this is what I'm choosing. This is my choice. And right now, this is a really big yes, why I'm doing what I'm doing. And just allowing that, the 5 reasons why I wasn't even acknowledging this job for what is good for me is now all of a sudden these energetics are working towards me. And I have my own personal examples where I was fighting against something, maybe not quite enjoying corporate, or I just eased into it. And I use that energy towards, let's say, study.
Elena, you're bringing up beautifully my next question. I've got to
Yes.
go there. I've got to bring it up. I think it's really, really important because for the women listening who looks like she has it all together but exhausted inside, what would you want her to hear today?
I want her to hear that I see her
Mm,
and I understand that right now it might not feel like she has a lot of control in her life. And this is something that is okay. Like the way she feels is okay, and it's also okay to start supporting yourself, even if it's just a little bit at a time. And remembering also that the little changes they compound,
yeah.
because quite often we get a little bit disappointed that you do a little bit and then you're back to overwhelmed, let's say, or feeling drained. Not to give up and just add on. It's about that small things, starting small. I often use that analogy of physical exercise because again our bodies are blueprint that have been given to us to see how things work. If you go into a gym and say really push it hard after not doing it for a long time, you might be sore, you might be not feeling great, you might give it up. But if you start doing it one at a time, knowing that might be sometimes discomfort, it might feel strange, it might feel unfamiliar, and connection with ourselves can feel really unfamiliar and uncomfortable. And I just want to remind whoever is listening that if you keep doing it, it's gonna get better. You're gonna get stronger.
Mm.
Of course, I'm more than happy to support with some of my resources or my working together because I
Well, yeah,
sometimes say
Elena,
that,
I want to
yeah.
know, like, if there's a woman hearing this right now and they're like, "Hey, I want to get in touch. I want to start working with you." Like, what can they start doing?
They can, well, they're more than welcome to contact me directly or join my group because I do share quite a lot of resources and I'm sharing a lot of resources that are helpful on a day-to-day basis because I sometimes look at myself as like and I sometimes joke that I'm a kindness personal trainer because for me it's not so much about the exercise out there, right? We have all this information around us. For me, it's about what can make it work. Let's make it practical. And if you want to fast track yourself, come and work with me directly because then I'll fast track you. But for me, it's also important to share those practices. Like in my community, I do weekly meditations. I drop videos, I have my mini ebooks that I share with people outside of my community as well. Why? Because like one of the reasons I'm so focused on women is because women are just by default are in a given state. They have to be, the caring is within them, but the caring outwards. And it's so important for me to remind the woman that it's important what we are going from. I had this one beautiful client once who said to me, but I just want to be a torch. I'm a torch who shines for other people. And I said, well, what is the torch good? Is a torch, what is it any good if it doesn't have any batteries?
Mm.
You cannot shine. And I know this is something that's been used a lot, that phrase about not giving from empty cup. We can at some point continue giving, but we are constantly reaching from the inside, and then we start to run on.
It's
Yeah, when you don't
important.
change the oil in a car, the oil is not necessarily, the car is running, but
Yeah.
it's not a good process. So
No.
it's so important to start taking care of yourself as someone who is driving the process. And it's empowering as well that quite often the women, say in a family unit, in a work environment, they would say, why do I have to do everything? Why do I have to be the emotional? Well, firstly, you're already carrying that mental load. That's a fact. And second of all, look at it as an empowering thing.
Mm.
Because I do believe that a woman stepping into a room creates a space around her.
Yeah.
It's just
And
what we do.
when we're in that exhausted state, we can think to ourselves like, oh, another person to take care of. But we're only feeling that way because we're not taking care of number one.
Because of the
Classic
stake of
thing as well. Like
yeah,
number
we
one,
only feeling
we've got
that
to
because we
come from
don't have enough.
here to
Yeah,
get it out there. And when we're
yeah,
constantly in that state of give, and not give coming from that space of overflow with the cup, it's truly exhausting. And we build up this level of resentment. And we've got to break those layers down and come back to now. It's
yeah.
so
Well,
important.
100%. And we can look at it as an energetic cup. So we have things need to come in, things are coming out, and things we also don't want to have any leaks because we have a lot of emotional drainage quite often. But it's that it's that understanding that and I sometimes say it honestly to women that well we are the creator, we are the creative force. We do create life, we create space, and
Mm.
it's about what kind of space do I want to create within me and around me, and it's
Oh, I
and
love
that
it.
is empowering
Beautiful. That's
because
what I
I
said.
want to enjoy whatever I'm doing.
Damn right.
I want to enjoy that interactions, giving to people, and sometimes I use this analogy of money. So imagine that in your pocket right now you have $1,000, and I would say, Harry, can I borrow 100? And you would say, well, maybe sure, because maybe you know me, you might not know me that well, but it's but you say sure because you have 1,000, you can give me 100. But if you only have 100, and I would say to you, can I borrow your 100? It's completely different. You might give it to me, but then it's going to be a lot of,
Yeah, it's a good
or you would
analogy.
just, and in women, we quite often have to give our last, right? This is what sometimes we are programmed to do. Give. So this is the energetic analogy.
We got to
We
protect
want
our
to keep,
energy. It's such an
yeah,
important message, Elena. And I just want to say how the message and the tools and the resources that you're bringing are so important for so many women to hear. And I want to say, jump into the description now and join her wonderful group. And I just got to say thank you so much for the time that we've had
thank
today.
you.
Thank you for rocking
Thank you for
out.
your time.
It's been incredible. So once again, if you want to check out Elena, jump in to the Facebook, go check her profile out, go join her group, and get access to this today. Because yeah, thank you so much for the value you brought today, Elena, and yeah, I really appreciate your time.
Thank you. Thank you so much.